Michèle, why is it more complex than just building the spaces?
Well, it's complex because, first of all, we know that there are particular populations that face barriers to housing disproportionately, right? So we know that Indigenous populations, for example, women and gender diverse folks, persons with disabilities, these are all populations that are facing barriers, for example, in finding rental units, who might face discrimination. We also know that income support programs across this country are just not meeting the need that exists right now. And let's juxtapose all of this to the point that it was back in 2019 that Canada passed the very first right to housing legislation, our National Housing Strategy Act, which requires the government to create housing policy that is consistent with the human right to housing, that makes sure that the policies that are being created are genuinely to address poor housing need and end homelessness. So what's going to be really important moving forward is making sure that this Build Canada Homes entity isn't just, putting shovels in the ground, but that it's putting shovels in the ground. We're building units that are genuinely affordable to folks. And we're also thinking about all of these other factors, right? So like income support programs, like renter protections, like making sure, for example, that there is a for Indigenous, by Indigenous mandate so that at least 20% of the projects that are funded by Build Canada Homes are led by Indigenous organizations.
Why that number, 20%?
20% is the number that a number of our partners have been calling for. There's been a strong call in making sure that there are Indigenous community housing providers that are at the center of this new entity.
The agency, as we know, has the right to approve construction on public lands. Here in Winnipeg, there's been some discussion, reaction, debate about where housing should go. Some agree we need supportive and affordable housing, but some people, if it does land in their neighborhood, have questions about it. Some don't want it. Do you think that we're only going to see more of this? I should say we're probably only going to see more of this discourse moving forward, obviously, as they start to look at public lands. What do you think has to happen to break through public objection where that occurs about where housing goes?
Yeah, it's a fantastic question, but I think that the reality is that the housing crisis is feeling more and more pressing personally for people across this country. I mean, I have certainly heard from folks, you can't have, for example, we're coming up on Thanksgiving in a few weeks. You can't think about having a holiday dinner with family members or friends without the issue of the housing crisis coming to that discussion, right? I mean, we just came out of a federal election where the housing crisis was front and center, along with the affordability crisis, right? So while I think that, some concerns are certainly being voiced, I think that more and more those are being diluted by the fact that people across this country really, truly, I think, do agree that housing is a fundamental human right and everyone deserves a safe, stable, and affordable place to live.
Thank you very much for your time on this. Appreciate it.
Thank you so much.
Michèle Biss is the Executive Director of the National Right to Housing Network.